What's good, gamers? Welcome back to each and every one of you. We're talking about the story, something very specifically within World of Warcraft that originally got me very angry, and then obviously speculation brain started kicking in, and I've been sort of running through all of the different scenarios in which this can actually make a lot of sense. We're going to talk in this video about a number of things. So it's not just going to be about one specific storyline. It's also going to be about how the writing in Dragonflight has it sometimes, sort of let the story down. Because one thing that I want to make clear right off the bat is that the story of Dragonflight, the story in terms of the story points, where the story may or may not be going, some of the plot lines, that's actually pretty good. There's actually quite a number of really good stories in Dragonflight. One of the things that have very much let Dragonflight down, and this really is something that we've seen happen ever since BFA really, where the story would get let down due to how it is written, due to the fact that a number of things that should be explained just completely get left out. It's as if the writers just skip a bunch of steps from one story to the next. So I first, before we get into this, I want to make one thing very clear. There is such a thing as a really good story told really badly. And I really feel like World of Warcraft has suffered from this for a number of expansions now, where Shadowlands, for example, is a really good story, but it was told really badly. BFA had some really good story in it, but most of it was told really badly. And now with Dragonflight, we're sort of running into the same problem, where they have a number of really cool stories, but most of them are told really badly. What am I referring to here? Well, one of the ones that sort of started a massive debate, on my channel, at least in the comment section, on my video covering this, was Verinoth joining up with the Aspects. Now, I am not suggesting that that is a bad story. To all of the people that commented, sort of calling me out saying, oh, but this and this and this, I want to make it clear. I don't think that in and of itself is a bad storyline. There is so much that you can do with that story. In fact, one of my favorite theories on this is that she's a plant. She is there because she's going to screw over the Aspect at some point. And what better way of screwing them over than knowing their plans before you do it, right? So that's sort of one of my favorite theories. The problem with that specific storyline is in how we got there. Nothing was set up in order for it to lead to a believable Verinoth joining the Aspects. If you watch the cinematic between Verinoth and Veritistrasza, this is the last thing that you would expect from Verinoth. You would need a lot more setup in order to make that storyline make sense in any way, shape, or form. So not a bad story, just how it was told, not the best. This kind of is what today's video is all about. There's a new story on the PTR. It's about Lillian Voss and Chandra's Feathermoon. The storyline effectively is it's a coming together kind of story. Lillian Voss and Chandra's are trying to sort out what's going on in the dream, and through, I guess we could say, shared loss, they find each other and in the end become friends. Originally, when I read this story, I was busy live streaming, and one of my viewers was like, hey bro, you have to check this out. What is the story? What are your thoughts? And my original belief, I was very angry. I read through it and I was like, this makes no sense. Like, nothing here makes any sense. The thing is, there are a number of races in World of Warcraft that you can bring together, and they would work. Night Elves and Tauren, for example, could actually work. Orcs and humans have shown that they can work. Not all of the humans and not all of the orcs, but at least some humans and some orcs can absolutely work. You can even make a case for Blood Elves and humans getting along, pretty much swimmingly. The issue is that you chose two races that absolutely fundamentally cannot work together. There is just too much bad blood between these two races in very recent memory. Now, we could argue and say, well, actually, Akalon, Remember, it was Sylvanas that burnt down the World Tree. It wasn't the Forsaken. It doesn't really matter. Think about it like this. If a tribe arrived at your town or your city or your country and then burnt the whole thing down, killed millions of people, are you really going to draw that distinction? No, because at the end of the day, your people were lost. In fact, Chandris blames herself because she wasn't strong enough to stop the Horde. This is just a story that needs so much setup in order to work. And I'm not saying that it can't work, but you need a lot of setup. You need to show character progression from Chandris in order to make it make sense, because Chandris, of all the people, would not trust a Forsaken, not only because the Forsaken burnt their tree, but also because the Forsaken very much represent everything the Night Elves despise. The Night Elves are for nature and life. The Forsaken is literally anti-life. They are the opposite of what life wants. So it just creates this very weird scenario as you're reading through that, and you can see the developers really tried to do a good job of showing the loss of Chandris and showing the loss of Lillian Voss and showing how they connect through that shared loss. The problem is everything that was supposed to happen before that moment, before Chandris would even have entertained Lillian Voss in her presence, that should have been set up long before, and it wasn't. So my original reaction was, what the hell is this? I've had some time to think about it, and while I still sort of argue what the hell is this, I don't think this is a bad thing for the future of the story. One of the key things right now in World of Warcraft that a lot of people, myself included, have been calling for is we want the conflict, the war in World of Warcraft back. It doesn't have to be between the Horde and the Alliance, but we need war. We need none of this togetherness. We don't want this friendship. The power of friendship will overcome everything. That's not what World of Warcraft is. It's not what World of Warcraft has been historically. And, you know, maybe I'm just old. I was on stream last week and Noble was in the chat and we were having a conversation specifically about this storyline. And Noble brought up, you know, maybe we're just too old. You know, maybe the stories that we loved and the things that we connected with, maybe we're just too old. Maybe the story isn't really written for us anymore. And maybe that's true. You know, maybe that is true. But for me, I want to see that conflict. I want to know that there are stakes in this game. I want to know that the war is alive and well. And one of the ways in which I can see Blizzard bringing the war in World of Warcraft back is by realigning the factions. So we already know that actual faction conflict is dead, right? That cannot happen. You now have cross-faction guilds, cross-faction raid groups, cross-faction dungeon groups, cross-faction PvP. So how do you bring the conflict of the factions back? Well, maybe instead of having it be conflict between the factions as a whole, it could be conflict between different ideological groups within the factions. So it's not the Horde total versus the Alliance total, but let's say, for example, you know, you have a faction within the Horde that is very much anti something that there's a faction on the Alliance side of that is very much for something, right? And a good example of this would be if we read the room and we sort of look where the story is going, Light Void, Order, Disorder. The Titans, we know, are coming back to Azeroth, most likely sooner rather than later. The Void is coming because Eridicron wants to summon them in. The Light will not be far behind because the Light has never not shown up when the Void is around. And this may actually form that split, where you have groups within the Horde and the Alliance that absolutely refuse to side with the Titans, that believe that the Titans are just as much of a threat as all of the other cosmological forces. And then maybe you have another group within both the Horde and the Alliance that are actually very much pro siding with the Titans. And this could be a really good alignment for war. So players get to choose which side of this conflict they want to be on. Do you believe that the Titans are good? Well, then you're going to join the Horde and the Alliance side that believes that the Titans are good. Do you believe that the Titans are bad? Then you're going to join the other side. And this creates that conflict without ever having to spark another Horde versus Alliance conflict. It also creates a tremendous amount of future storytelling ability, because you can have endless conflicts like this. It's not like the Horde and the Alliance where the conflict, can either always just be a stalemate. This is a conflict that can absolutely heat up and have some very real consequences. It allows you to introduce brand new heroes and brand new characters to the Horde and the Alliance, because these factions may not represent the heroes that we have come to know. The Horde may be led by, Broken Fang or whatever, right? And he's a new orc that sort of stood up and got very angry. And the Alliance may be led by, I don't know, pick a name, right? A human sounding name, Clara or whatever, right? And Clara and Broken Fang are just going at it, just killing each other eventually. And it allows you to basically have this endless conflict within World of Warcraft without sort of sabotaging the sort of undertones of what the Horde and the Alliance is. So I do think there is a genuine opportunity here for some really good storytelling. But just to circle back, it wasn't done greatly. The story really did not make sense, at least if you pay attention to how stories are supposed to be written. Now, that's not to say that you can't make sense of the story. And I want to make that clear, because there's been a number of comments on my last video that basically did this exact thing, where people would go, oh, Akalon, what do you mean it doesn't make sense? And then they would proceed to give me a bunch of headcanon that makes it make sense. That's great. I do that for a living. I have no problem with headcanoning. But that's not good writing. If we are left having to speculate about the mindset and the exact, what should we call it, motivations of characters, that is just a badly written story. The motivations of characters should be clear. Their goals can be a point of speculation, but motivations need to be clear. This is one of the things that made Legion and Battle for Azeroth such fun expansions to speculate about. The motivations were always very clear. In fact, the way in which Blizzard made the motivations murky was in giving you almost too many motivations for what they were doing. The Whispers, for example, just threw millions of motivations at you, as well as millions of predictions at you for how things could play out. And this left the players sort of go, pick one and just go with it and see where it goes, right? It's very fun for speculation. The issue in current day World of Warcraft is that the motivations are very much just left out. It's not even, like, they don't even attempt to explain the motivations for certain things happening. I mean, the goals are also just, there's no effort to even leave a little bit of breadcrumbs as to where the goals may lead. Like, what could the goals potentially be? Even if it is misdirect, at least giving players some kind of inclination of what the goals here may be is better than nothing. This is sort of my biggest problem right now with the story, and this is why you'll see me make videos calling Blizzard out on some of their storytelling stuff, because I want to speculate about the story. I love some of the elements within Dragonflight, but it's so hard when I don't even believe the story that I'm supposed to speculate about. I don't believe that Lillian Voss and Chandra's Feathermoon would be friends with one another. I'm sorry, I just don't. I don't believe the premise here. So, maybe I'm alone. Maybe I'm the only one that feels this way. If I am, let me know in the comment section down below. I'm going to get out of your hair. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, subscribe over on Patreon. By the way, if you haven't already, $1 a month keeps this channel free from sponsorships. Ladies and gentlemen, see you next time. Peace.